Hello everyone! Pino and Apple here with the latest pretty interesting series from Big Finish, The Fugitive Doctor's first box set, Most Wanted. We of course first saw the Fugitive Doctor in Series 12, coming someplace between The Timeless Child and William Hartnell's First Doctor, and fighting with Paul McGann's 8th Doctor with the title for the most mind wipes. We last saw Jo Martin as the Fugitive Doctor in Coda the Final Act, where she went against and with the War Doctor, and I'm pretty psyched for this set. There are a lot of interesting things you can do with the Fugitive Doctor, and while I want an explanation on how they went from the Timeless Child to the Doctor, and then being fully memory wiped into the Doctor we know, as there are a lot of possibilities, it's not something that needs to be explicit. Just who is after her and why. And although they keep the specific why shrouded, we get the basics. Almost enough not to dampen any of the stories, so why don't we start with the Fugitive Doctor Adventures, Episode 1, Fast Times. So, Fast Times, not so much at Ridgemont High, is written by Robert Valentine, who we've seen a few times on the channel, but mainly some decent stories in the 9th Doctor adventures. This story bounces around a bit, from an initial assassination plot to a space prison to escaping some nice-looking Daleks. It does feel a little all over the place, maybe needing some more connective tissue, but on the whole, it was an enjoyable action-packed romp. The story starts with what I can only assume is a meeting of the higher-ups of Division, Tecteun somewhere in there, and they all theorise that since the Doctor is apparently showing signs she is recalling past events they erased from her, they need to capture her and make sure those possible memories aren't threats to them. Wow. What a bunch of assholes. Is she remembering? Looks like it. Well, let's just hunt her down to make sure she can't leak any of our secret info. What info? I don't know. Although if they're Division, they have some modicum of control over her, don't they? Why don't they just ask, hey, can you come back to Gallifrey and then trap her? We get the theme tune now, and yeah, I gotta be honest, I was hoping she'd get her own theme tune. Maybe based on either 13's or the War Doctors, but as far as I can tell, we just get a re-release of 13's theme, which is fine. It's nice to hear the modern themes in Big Finish, but I was really hoping that as a separate incarnation, just like the War Doctor, she'd get her own. And before recording this, having just started the first episode of Call Me Master, I know that series has its own opening theme, so why not this one? The Fugitive Doctor's adventure starts mid-mission, where she is betrayed by her partner named Number 9.
Number 9? Number 9?
Who for some reason, and this was pointed out by a few people online, goes uncasted. I guess people really like Number 9. He is ordered to double-cross her and drag her back home. He's pretty easily escaped though, as she sets the locals on him. But thanks to some of Nine's quality tranquilizer, she passes out and is captured by a passing bounty hunter, leaving her in a space prison to await Division picking her up. The prison ship Punishment. Punishment itself isn't a great location, but a lot of the characters and moments are fun. But it's pretty much just your generic prison in space. The Warden is already annoyed with the Doctor as she arrives, and she does what any would do, entering a new prison, walking up to the biggest guy in the yard and making him her bitch, having him named Tiddler from this moment forth. This unintentionally has her saving another inmate from abuse, Fade, played by Leah Harvey, who is very thankful to the Doctor, and ends up speaking to her later. Much like her, Fade is only here to be shipped off again, and has a plan to escape, but thanks to the Tiddler's injury, it's up to the Doctor to fulfill the plan. And while hesitant, Fade is already breaking her out, so she has little choice, as she is the Doctor at her core, unable to keep her nose out of it. Relations are rough between prisoners, but in another cool and funny moment, the Doctor pretty easily gets past the guard, after a load of build-up just to call the guard away from the intercom. Just as they're about to get in their escape ship, the Doctor splits up to get after the TARDIS, Fade following after things start going wrong, thinking the Doctor is her best bet out. Punishment is being attacked as they escape, the Fugitive Doctor reluctantly deciding to take a detour to save some suffering people, including the Warden, who gracefully allows them to escape as he moves everyone to the escape pods. I really like this aspect of the story. As the Fugitive is a more abrasive incarnation of the Doctor, this story works as a pretty good baseline, her wanting to stay tough and out of other people's affairs, but is at her core just physically unable to not save people, which is why she allows Fade to come along along, while saving her own skin at the same time. Of course, the attackers are the Daleks. What is a Doctor Who series without them? And yeah, they don't need to be here, but they don't overstay their welcome either. This story is more about the other aspects. The Daleks only introduced 22 minutes into the story, as the story is more about setting up what the Doctor is going to be like, and the whole background with how she went on the run. Also, I love the use of a more Dalek movie type design. The Doctor helps the ship land without killing everyone, the escape pod's unable to fire, and there's a little too much technobabble, but the sequence is fun. The Doctor calls the Daleks to stop attacking, and it turns out they're after Fade, who is a rebel element in one of their conquests. And of course, they identify the Doctor as their enemy. Her very confused, but she tries an escape anyway, as Fade explains the hateful creatures to her. Fade contacts her superiors and has sensitive info to deliver. The Doctor going along with it, well, after a bit of complaining, attempting to shake the pepper pots. Meanwhile, back on the planet, the Punishment crew have survived and are found by a Time Lord, Cosmogon, played by Alice Krieger, very disappointed that the Doctor and Tiddles are gone. Possibly dead, not knowing much about the Doctor, but able to follow her time trace. Once again, a lot of possible technobabble. The Doctor leads the Daleks around but is unable to shake them. Well, not for good, as they try to pass the info off at a meeting place only for the Daleks to arrive, sending them on the run again, while Cosmogon hunts Tiddles. The Doctor tries to learn about her connection to the Daleks, but is interrupted just before they can get any real info.
As you well know,
Yes?
you are the Doctor,
Yes?
and you have been the enemy of the Daleks ever since.
No! Not yet! Doctor! Bloomin' brilliant.
This leads them on another chase, which is still pretty good, interesting once they involve time travel, ending with them landing in the middle of one of Oppenheimer's tests, and leading the Dalek ship straight into the nuke. Okay, that's fucking cool. It also makes me wonder if the Doctor's done this before, just dumping some shit they need destroyed real quick. Oppenheimer gets his moment of, oh, what have I done? And the Doctor finally gets Fade debugged and to the Rebel base. Cosmogon not far behind, but in a badass moment in return for the save, the Rebels hold Cosmogon, or as the Doctor calls her, Cosmo, until the Renegade can escape. So that was fast times, and it was a really solid start. Not amazing, but much like how the pilot uses the Daleks, they didn't overstay their welcome. All the side characters were interesting and played well, and this story sets up the rest of the line well by showing us who the Fugitive Doctor is going to be. Starting off her life on the run from the Division, and Cosmo's attempts to capture her, which will reappear in this set and continue into at least the next. So I'll give Fast Times by Robert Valentine a great 7.5 out of 10. Not perfect, a little all over the place, but still pretty solid. Next up we have The Legend of the Baba Yaga by Roshana Patel, who I've listened to, but we haven't seen on the channel, and what a story to start with. The Legend of the Baba Yaga takes a lot from tales and folklore, such as the titular Baba Yaga and a Russian Cinderella, and crafts an interesting story that blends sci-fi and fairy tales in a way that Series 14 wished it could, much like how Big Finish beat them with the Age of Sutekh. The Doctor has come to meet the mysterious Baba Yaga, but we start proper with Vasilissa, played by Sophie Shad, the Cinderella of our story, with her evil and bitchy stepmother Toshka, played by Penelope Rawlins, and less evil but still bitchy stepsister Milana, played by Becky Wright, who we last saw on the channel, either in The Beautiful Game or as Terry in Doomsday. I can't remember which came first. Because they're cavemen, I guess they failed to light a fire, so the loving stepmother sends Vasilissa into the forest to get a lit candle, an idea that even her evil child is hesitant about. A nice depth of character. Sure, she's a bitch, but she doesn't want her stepsister to die. More than can be said for Toshka. Vasilissa is caught off guard, saved from a spectral horseman by the Doctor, creepily jumping out of a bush, so they travel together to avoid the witch's minions. And while the two of them aren't perfect friends, they do work off of each other well, having a lot of nice moments, like the Doctor geeking out about meeting her, who she proclaims Vasilissa the Beautiful, same as the legend, the girl getting a little flustered at the idea.
Oh, it's a bit like pootling about Sherwood Forest and immediately bumping into Robin Hood. It just wouldn't happen.
You called?
The Doctor hypes Vasilissa up well and tries to teach her the rules of time travel. Vasilissa tries her luck and asks if the Doctor can make her fire, but this gets Baba Yaga, played by Sylvia herself, Jacqueline King, spying on them. Out of pure spite, she uses her magic and reality psychic abilities to will no fire to light in the forest, forcing her to continue her quest and only intriguing and off-putting the Doctor more. To survive the cold of the night and a horseman, the girls escape to the TARDIS, the Doctor explaining her motives to Vasilisa and theorising they should be fine, considering all Baba Yaga stories end with her not killing or eating anyone. But that's a little iffy, isn't it? Of course you wouldn't hear the stories about the people she eats. She ate them. How are they going to tell the story? She's been brought here, tracing a TARDIS, many Time Lords encountering this Baba Yaga, but not making it out alive, theorising an enemy of an enemy is her friend, and is looking for some Time Lord protection. To find her chicken-footed hut, they follow a horseman back home, finding an interesting home security system. And it may not all come together perfectly, but the imagination mixed with the descriptive dialogue and sound design really sells the creepy and otherworldly atmosphere. The Doctor is thinking, in my opinion, far too optimistic of Baba Yaga's goodwill, and is confused as to the internals of the hut, it being exactly what she'd expect, no alien tech or anything out of place, just pure evil witchy atmosphere. Much like the Carrionites, there's a nice focus on the power of witchy words when it comes to the Baba Yaga's magic, shown well as they get inside. Meanwhile, Baba Yaga is inspecting the TARDIS, likening the Doctor to her, calling it the Doctor's hut. Her reaction pretty interesting. The Doctor lets temptation rule her and takes an ember from the hut stove for Vasilisa, who would rather be respectful and wait, but the Doctor wants the girl out of the way, but she refuses to leave, the Doctor complimenting her well.
That's sweet of you, giving me an out. And I thought you were the naive one.
Me?
But you're not. You're the brave one, doing what needs to be done. I'm the naive one. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, I thought. Baba Yaga will help me. No. The chances are she slaughtered an entire TARDIS crew and is using their skulls as oil lamps and fence posts.
Attempting to leave, they're head off by the Baba Yaga, pissed at the Doctor's attitude when asking for help after stealing the ember. The Baba Yaga in itself is not the best or the most interesting character until the end, but she works off of these two well enough in her flamboyant performance. Eventually, Baba Yaga decides they are to do tasks for her in return for their prizes, insisting there is no tech but real magic. The task is to clean her garden by sunset and feed her, the Doctor letting Vasilisa do the work while she spends time doubting magic. Of course, there are caveats to the challenge, the horseman dirtying the yard all over again as it dies, as they have done in the story before. But the Doctor finally does something useful, using one of the flaming Time Lord skulls adorning the place to burn the unwanted away. Baba Yaga reserved in her judgment, but eventually, after some more of the Doctor's pushback, the witch gets her dinner and gives Vasilisa her fire, but only gives the Doctor her ability to walk out of the door. They make their way back to Vasilisa's home, giving them the fire. Perhaps Toshka might care about her now. Nope. Milana is actually happy to see Vasilisa, but of course there's another trick. The flames springing alive to exercise karma and burn their family to death, as in the story. But thanks to Vasilisa's heart and the Doctor's guidance, they put the fire out. The Doctor heads back to face Baba Yaga, urging Vasilisa to leave and make her own way in the world, and she deduces who Baba Yaga is. A feedback loop of psychic belief, starting with the psychic storm, and as layers of folklore and belief stacked on top of each other, the Baba Yaga and her hut were created from a TARDIS and mutilated local spinster, the woman freaking out as when she's finally awake she realises what she's become. The Doctor gives the woman a good pep talk while still prodding for info, but eventually leaves the woman to now finally have the choice of what to do. The story ends proper with Vasilisa leaving, actually having a nice amicable goodbye with Milana. So while not perfect, The Legend of the Baba Yaga is a pretty solid story that mixes sci-fi and fairy tales in a satisfying way, with good imagery and atmosphere, characters that are well performed, entertaining and interesting, and while it's mostly its own story, it ties into the overall arc well, without it feeling tacked on. So I'll give The Legend of the Baba Yaga a 9 out of 10. Lastly, we have The Dimension of Lost Things by Lisa McMullen, who we last saw do one story in each series of the Ninth Doctor adventures, and the two most divisive episodes of Once and Future. A writer with many highs and lows, and while there is a lot of really interesting concepts and characters in this story, I don't think it comes together as well as the last two. It's not bad in any way, but there are one too many paradoxes and distractions for my liking. But that doesn't mean there's a lack of creativity. The story starts with the Doctor once again running from Cosmo and uses time winds to temporarily damage the vortex by, as she says, doing a temporal handbrake turn, which is hilarious imagery, and ends up being sucked through a tear, materializing in a big jumble of landscapes, the titular dimension of lost things, which is similar to the backrooms and a pretty interesting concept for Doctor Who to tackle. Meanwhile, we also meet another of our main characters, Sandy Irvine, played by Matt Wycliffe, who is scaling Mount Everest, losing sight of his climbing partner and ending up in this confusing mishmash land, and another missing in action, Athelia. While I didn't get too invested in Athelia, she and her giant squirrel friend Bevan are endearing, but apart from the Doctor, Sandy is the main characterization we get, and while he spends a lot of time just being out of his depth, the acting, writing, and ending for the character are all pretty great. I found myself really invested in getting him a nice happy ending. The Doctor and Sandy run into each other, equally confused of the mixed biomes and floor littered with easily lost objects like phones and keys. Also in the mix is a big shroud of lost wailing souls that lure the unsuspecting travellers and try to depress them to death, the Doctor having to act fast to pull Sandy away from the hopeless spirits. It's another good concept, but added to everything else, like I said before, this is probably one of the ideas that could have been saved for another story. The two run into Bevan and Athelia, and one being a giant squirrel and the other having tentacles, it takes Sandy a little getting used to. Athelia happens to know the Doctor already, much to her confusion, and the newcomers invite them back to camp, where the Doctor should already be.
This is Bevan.
My word.
Sandy!
No, I'm sorry. I've just been introduced to a giant squirrel. My word is not an overreaction. And I thought the tentacles were peculiar.
And what happened to manners cost nothing?
Apologies for any offence, but where we come from, everybody looks, well, rather more like us.
You've met everybody, have you?
No, I suppose not.
They get to the kind of refugee camp and they run into another Doctor who's been here for a year, and we assume this is a sort of future Doctor. Our Doctor having to live through the event and then be pushed back a year and then live it again, which is actually a really good deception. As it turns out, this Doctor is in fact an earlier version, hinted at well with subtle cues on a re-listen. They explain the whole backrooms-ish quality of the dimension, and as they talk, Cosmogon lands with a group of time agents and chrono-jumpers, who are basically time-sensitive teleporters. So the Doctor, along with Sandy, Bevan, and Athelia, escape via vehicle. Their troubles only get worse as time pockets appear around them. So with the chrono-jumpers around, they drive right into a valley, which is also home to the Lost Souls and the Mind Wind, which is a bit of a stupid name, but utterly horrific as Bevan gets hit by the wind, and it affects them so badly they eventually forget how to breathe and just die. Jesus, it's gruesome, but also another great idea that could have fitted well in a different story, maybe one with a darker tone where the utter horror of that could have been well explored. The Doctors talk about their missing memories, perhaps being able to find them here, and we get a couple of flashbacks. Flashbacks that, much like others, kinda don't fit that well into the story, but are also repetitive and boring, as nothing comes of them. Sure, they do work as nice teasers, but the story just kinda stops so that we can get them out of the way and nothing comes of them. Sandy and Athelia interact together well, as they move to escape the valley, but are turned around dodging Cosmo's gunfire. The other Doctor revealing she has her own TARDIS, them coming upon it in a forest, a Type 30 pyramid. Ooh, something isn't right. So it turns out, much like Cosmo, this previous Doctor is working for Division to pick up her future self, showing that this Doctor has been retconned multiple times, and with Cosmo wanting our Doctor too, it becomes a Mexican standoff. Much like our Doctor, this past one sucks at calling Cosmo the right name too. And we go through this well-performed, but impeding flashback again. But a time pocket appears, our Doctor and the two bystanders getting through and disappearing to minutes earlier, allowing a head start on their escape back to the right TARDIS and out of the pocket dimension. We get a nice little moment where it turns out this Doctor hasn't met or hasn't heard of her future friend Herbert, or H.G. Wells, and Sandy rightly deduces she isn't human. Sandy is happy to go home and find his missing friend, but in a nice twist, it turns out Sandy doesn't make his way down the mountain according to history. And as he steps out onto the icy snowcap, his friend George is nowhere to be seen, having disconnected from Sandy moments before he was taken, having slid down a ravine, body to be found like 80 years in the future. Sandy and George being revealed to be real-life explorers, Mallory's body truly found in 1999, and Sandy's remains apparently partially uncovered in 2024. But the Doctor gives him a choice: try and defy history by trying to head down the mountain, or disappear as accounts aren't sure if they ever find him, and he goes off to explore space with Athelia. It's a great ending, sad and hopeful. On to the next great adventure. And so the Doctor leaves as she continues to have her repetitive flashbacks. So, that was the dimension of lost things. And while there are a lot of tangents and ideas that would gel better in their own stories, there was a lot of good here. The dimensions concept was interesting and creative, the ducking of conventional multi-Doctor tropes is great, and the minor characters are all great in performances and writing. Bevan's death heartbreaking, Athelia endearing, and Sandy's story a standout of the episode. So while it's probably my least favourite listen of the box set, I will give it a solid 7 out of 10. And with a rating like that, this box set, the first of the Fugitive Doctor adventures, Most Wanted, sits at a 7.8 out of 10. So although I'm not a big fan of Big Finish's price points, if you're a big fan of the Fugitive Doctor, this is a great box set to get. Thank you everybody for watching my review of the first Fugitive Doctor box set, Most Wanted. Please like the video if you liked it, comment down below if you wish, and consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, ring the notification bell so that you're told every single time that I make an upload. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next review. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast. Because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.